just want a part-time assistant. They don't need a full-time person. So that part-time assistant would be working for 2 CEOs, then 2 part-time
Of course.
CEOs. Yeah, so that's how it works.
And do you have different kind of profile of assistant depending on the kind of role the CEO wants to play?
Yes.
Then research would involve a different profile from
Yes.
administrative.
So based on the kind of person he is looking for, I'll pull up one that's best.
And they work from their home.
They work from their home, they work from office.
You are okay.
Yes.
So, and what are the fee like?
Well, the fee is like, they are all hourly fees because that's how they prefer to pay. But a good decent assistant for full time would be $20 an hour.
Okay.
So then you can decide. We can freeze on base number of hours, so say 40 hours a week or say 40 hours for a month. And then we go ahead from, so he pays the base fees and then all the additional hours are charged.
Okay, and the base fees will be?
Base fees will be whatever we decide in our slabs,
Okay.
like 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week.
Oh, the base fee differs.
80 hours a week.
Okay.
So he decides that will be on his base, so that will make sure that the assistant would provide, so that he would be available to be working for him.
And I could have anything.
Anything.
Especially things like, when you said travel booking, taking care of some of the personal stuff and stuff, that will be really...
Like he would come and say, I want to visit Rome, can you find out what I can do there? Can you plan a trip for me? So this assistant would sit and do research and come up with things to do in Rome.
It takes so much time.
Yeah, and then she would give his option that you might visit the church in the morning and the museum in the afternoon. That would be a nice place to have lunch and that for you.
Awesome.
So he will have his own itinerary to go and just do, and she would book his tickets, plane tickets, hotel booking.
Yeah.
So in INR, it kind of 20 is what now? 1400? 1400. And I could then ask something really good. I will let me, mull about that and see the... Because I've been...
Please come.
More importantly,
He asked 4 or 5 times.
We're going to start now. Come, Gowri.
is that Charu?
Are you Charu? Payal, no problem. Please be seated, Payal. Yeah.
You will not, as you have.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we start, please? So sorry.
Okay. Starting with me, then you'll have to pitch in then.
Oh, we'll just make it interactive.
So good afternoon,
We'll ask you questions.
Yes,
big
please.
Warm welcome to Gowri Sinha. She's a consultant and an entrepreneur from our country. So Gowri, the stage is all yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, this is really being privileged to be the first and only speaker also. But yeah, as Bhavini has promised, make it interactive. And hi, you are Payal.
I'm fine.
Hi, and you are?
Sandy.
Sandy. Hi, Sandy. I'm Gowri.
And I'm Bhavna.
Actually, I chose this topic because this was very interesting, and I was very keen to find out what is this, the AI software that's tracking employee engagement. I myself am a leadership development consultant, and engagement becomes one of the important factors or elements in the work I do with leadership teams. So I was very curious to find out about this. I hope I get to meet Charu otherwise and find out what is this the AI software. So however, I'm one of the panelists, and I came prepared to speak the glass ceiling from the angle of what are the habits and practices that women can and should adopt or look at to enable them to break this glass ceiling. And also I want to have a discussion around what is the glass ceiling currently? Okay? What is it? Because I know of so many women, personally, they're also in my family and in my network, that they have never experienced the glass ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So they don't know what it is. I mean, of course, they know the definition and know that there are women who experience it, but they have no. And there are so many of them. So that makes me start wondering, what is it that they are doing differently? What is the self, their self that they are bringing to their workplace that they don't experience the class union? And they are also working in companies like XYZ. And what the others can learn from that. I think one of the most, I would say, predominant sense I get from my personal knowledge of some of these women I have met is they are not, to use a very cliched term, they don't see themselves as victims. They don't see themselves at a disadvantage. They don't go with that mindset. They enter the workplace as equals, and any kind of inequality or injustice they do experience, they would treat it as much as a male colleague of theirs may also experience that inequality or injustice, right? And they take it up. That is, I think, one of the most predominant sense I get from these women is that, and why I'm not counting myself, because I've always been doing stuff on my own. I have worked in large corporations. My last stint was with KPMG, PwC, etc. But this is very early in my career. For the last 15 years, I've been on my own. So that's why I do not count myself in that. But yeah, when I did work, I did not face any discrimination. So coming back, so the most predominant thing, and these women are all super successful. One of the women I know very closely, she's a serial entrepreneur. She has been at the helm of starting up multiple successful businesses in India. And she sits at the table as an equal. She doesn't even think that anything different. So first thing, I think this first principle I see is that the mindset we bring. The mindset of not being a victim or being a victim of your gender. Not considering yourself at a disadvantage. Because that does reflect. When people do interact with you, they know the position you are coming from, they can guess it. The second principle that I have seen, which they bring to work, and why the glass ceiling doesn't exist for, is effective habits. That's my pet topic. And that is equally true for highly successful professionals, be it male or female. So the second principle is effective habits. The habits we bring across all facets of our work and personal life that makes us stretch beyond our limits, make us challenge ourselves, make us accomplish all the things that we want to do. And again, as I said, this is equally true for male and female. So the second principle is that. So one is the mindset, second is the kind of effective habits. The third is, I think, the important principle that I have seen coming is building relationship. And I so often hear about, especially women who are in the middle management, as a leadership consultant, and I do, and as a coach, I also interact with a lot of women in middle management. One of the things, they all have, young children, family, responsibilities, parents, in-laws. I say, I cannot network after the evening. I need to get back home. I cannot sit in office and late and go out for a drink. And again, from what I have seen from the reality and the successful women around is, it's not necessary to stay back after 6 or 7 and go out for a drink to network, to build relationship. There are various ways one could do it within the working hours, within your, by managing your other priorities. And some of the examples would, as simple as, making a call during office hours, key clients, key contacts, key people you would want to nurture, making a call, sending an email, regular email, remembering them, stepping out for a coffee or a lunch. So building relationship becomes a third principle. And when one is conscious of this as a principle and tries to do that, one sees many doors opening and ceilings breaking. I think that's what I do believe in. The fourth thing, again, it is people, those of you who are interested in the topic and do read a lot about this topic, would know that mentoring. Getting a mentor for yourself. It's oft repeated that it's become cliche, but it's oft repeated because it has the power. It has the power. So, and what does mentoring give us? It's nothing else except to know that, to show that there is a different perspective. There are different ways to look at your own situation and what you want to do. There are different tools and techniques you can apply. It just broadens the perspective. I think in the 4 principles I am sharing so far, I have shared so far, all the 2, 3 and 4 will apply to any gender, either gender, right? Irrespective of. But yeah, that is, it's one of the key principles and also in tackling with the so-called glass ceiling. So as I said, this is, I visualize this as an interactive thing, not.
Yes.
So I would like to hear from each of you your own experience. You can take 2-3 minutes to share vis-a-vis this particular glass ceiling. Either your experience or somebody you know very well. Has it happened, not happened? Do you feel it, not feel it? Yes? Thank you.
I'm Bhavini. I'm the founder of Infinity Business Solutions and publicbook.me, the publishing house. So I had not experienced glass ceiling for 7 years of my corporate career that I had before I ventured out into entrepreneurship. I did not know what that meant, and I had read about it though. I was doing great because, as she said, I had that attitude of sitting at the table with feeling that I am equal to them. Okay, but I experienced a gender biased. I had one experience which really brought me to think whether I really wanted to continue my corporate career or I wanted to have my own business. That was when I conceived my first child. So, that was during the 2008 recession, and I was into financial consultancy, which was a business that was going down, and I had to be on the field a lot. I used to travel a lot because I had to convert clients, convince them that this industry is not going to die, it is going to pick up, and this is the right time to actually invest, That was a depressing time for me because a lot of hormones were at its best since I was 3 months pregnant, and my company was laying off people. They were just asking them to step down because they were cutting costs, and that was the only way to survive for corporates then in this business, because there was no money coming in, everything was going out, So, and it was going to be there for a couple of years. So the companies, to survive that, they had to cut costs. My boss could not ask me to resign because it is illegal in India to ask a pregnant female to resign because she's not an asset. But every day he would come to my desk and he would tell me, you know what, the company is doing this, we have to cut on cost, we have so many overheads, so we need to sit and think about whom to ask to leave. So every single day I used to get up to make sure that I get new business for my company, and while listening to how I was not an asset. So that was the first experience of my life where I felt that I was not good enough for my company because I was a woman and pregnant. And maybe that was not the right time to
grow my family. But yeah, that was when I decided that I had to move on.
Thank you. You want to speak?
Join us in the front, yeah.
So, little bit of a personal experience here. So, I worked for think tanks, and I don't know how you define glass ceiling.
Sorry.
Okay.
Why don't you just turn your chair and sit down, yeah.
Yeah, so I worked for some think tanks in India, and those think tanks established by the state, by the government themselves, and I don't know how you define glass ceiling. I think it's very important to actually define the word. Define the word.
So we all can see you.
Okay. It'll look like I'm from the other side.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You're on the same side.
So I think defining the term in itself is very important, because sometimes when you are in an organization like think tanks which work with the government and there is politics involved, the gender bias it becomes very thin. The distinction between gender bias becomes very thin, because I felt in that organization, I was new. I had returned from London after my master's from a very good university abroad, and I realized 6 months down the line that I was being bullied by another woman because she was very old in that organization. So it's not glass ceiling, but it's just sort of a lobbying with another maybe intellectual group. And ultimately, after a year, since it's a contractual thing, I was told on the 11th month that my contract would not be renewed. And it was probably not for my intellectual capability, but it was simply because of the fact that I was not able to lobby with a certain group. Because think tanks do require taking that kind of position, and that all happens in a very informal setup. Second is probably my example of my mother, who's a very senior ranked government official again. So she's one of the top leaders in the government, and I've seen she's the only woman in a group of high ministers and other bureaucrats who form a part of that group. And I've seen men. It could be gender, it could be gender difference, or it could be again an intellectual difference, or a difference of opinion where all the men side together and the minister side with the other senior diplomats, and then my mother is sidelined. But I've seen in contrast where there are a group of, since I work with a lot with government officials, I've seen where there is a group of 2-3 women who work as a team and who go and represent themselves as a team to an equally powerful group of men across them. I think the negotiation is much better, and I think that's what a lot of women, especially in the Hillary Clinton campaign, they talked about this whole concept called amplification, where they kind of sit in a board meeting and then they support each other's decision. I don't know how far we as women can use this kind of a strategy to make our points point across as a strong opinion in a group, because that's a very big decision point for me sometimes, because I'm an opinionated person and I need support of a larger group, and I feel because of a gender difference or an intellectual difference, a lot of senior men, and let's agree that a lot of men occupies a position of power in management organizations and even in engineering and other industrial organizations, which are very formal. In formal structure, obviously women are coming up, but when we talk about structures of institutional capabilities or engineering or tough management institutions, they are men, and they are very opinionated. There is no gray. It's either a yes or a no. So in those kind of areas, you need that kind of voice. And I'm looking for an answer for that. And I thought maybe artificial intelligence or something like that would have an answer.
Well, I think we should, organization should get to honest.
Yeah, well spoken.
Get a word to Charu Sharma, that a lot of people are missing her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Akhilki, I think what I'm hearing you say is also that glass ceiling has to also, the definition also has to move, right? And what stops the woman is now not just the gender part, but also the way what she is able to bring to the table and the kind of support that they have or not. And the earlier example that you shared about yourself, the glass ceiling, that was, I think, maybe less to do with your gender, as you rightly felt, than more to do with the fact that you are not able to bring forth the set of behavior that they want, like the lobbying kind of.
Since you want to say that sessions should be interactive, I think when I go in an organization, I carry my feminine self. I ask for a mic. If I can't shout like a man, I expose and I I'm not ashamed of my vulnerabilities.
Absolutely.
But a lot of women out there, they want to act like men, and I'm not saying that I have a problem with that. But I have a problem with women sometimes who act like men, and they want to rule over you regardless of gender. But then you think that they being women will support you, but sometimes I don't. There is a gap because it's a very different class of women in themselves in an organization that I've felt.
Yeah, that is your own experience has shown that. I can understand, but maybe like to answer, you're trying to find an answer. Not that I have an already answer, but one of the possible ways to maybe look at it is situation specific, and detach the gender part from that, and see in the situation what is the behavior, what is the other person demonstrating, and would he or she do the same even if I were a man, and what is the expectation? So a lot of them you can kind of fall back to basics. In fact, one of the things I think I would like to add it as one of the principles in my what I shared in the topic that I was talking about is making an effort to understand the facts, asking a lot of clarifying questions, and not being afraid to ask and having direct conversation. If you feel any kind of discrimination or bias, upfront stand up and ask. I know it's easier said than done, but it is easier done than suffer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So, yes, may I know your name, please?
Sheila Triplani.
Hi, Sheila. Would you also can you move here?
Do you want me in front?
Yeah, I think it might make it easier.
Yeah, I just so much. I just feel that as you spoke, and I think it's true, women have to go that mile more to prove ourselves wherever we are. And that is why should we have to do it? But it still stays that we have to go that extra mile. We always have to prove that we are as good or better, that we have the answers to some things too. But that's the general, I think even with both of you speaking and everything, it just feels that way, even in my life, that you just have to prove yourself, and that's unfair.
Yeah.
That's very unfair.
Yeah.
Have you felt that?
No, I won't say that. I won't say.
Especially in management and at certain areas and levels, you do have to show that. Yeah. Otherwise, the men would just swallow you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. Sorry, I just want to add on.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for a woman in an organization to prove herself because sometimes the informal source or the informal structure works so fast and in such a rigid way against women, the grapevine, like anything she does, people start talking about you in an informal setup, and that sometimes affects decision making at the senior level.
True.
So people take that into consideration more than your performance, your sincerity, and your truthfulness, your righteousness in your work. So people look at those things, like how she's dressing up. She's an Indian, she should not be wearing skirts. Or why is her hair dyed? All those things. People would make opinion and they would hold those things against you in an organization rather than your performance. So I think that grapevine, and that's why you have to work and you have to go an extra mile to prove yourself that you are equal.
Absolutely. So my two bit is, yes, we do need to go the extra mile, and many of you have experienced that, many of us have experienced at different points in time. But ultimately, like you asked me, have you felt it? I always fallen back to the basic question of why am I doing this? Right? I am doing it for myself. And whatever is the cards I am dealt with, no one has asked me to go there, be a part of that organization, work, do whatever my role is. I'm doing it because I made a choice. I want to do it. My parents gave me that education, sent me to XLRI. I got into great companies, and I'm there because it's something I want to do. My choice that I am there, right? Most of the cases, touch wood, at least, that it's a choice. There are a lot of women who were there because of constraint. They just even to put a roof over their heads, they are out there working, and that's also true for many men. The second thing I fall back upon is it's also true for minorities. It is also a lot of what we experience is true for minorities also. So, yes, to answer that, fair, not fair, I think it's just that this is what we are dealt with. So what can I do? What I can do is in my control. That's what I fall back upon. It's very difficult for me to say that in a night, in a week, in a month, in 10 years, decades, I will be able to change the ecosystem around me. But what I choose to do, what is the mindset I bring to my work, what is the practices I bring to my life, what is the way I conduct myself, what is the way I keep my mind and my thoughts, that is in my control. I will just fall back on that. If that is of some help.
We just accept the situation and control it by the best way we can.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying the first part, accepting, no, not that. I'm just saying ultimately the choice is with me, right? Choice is with me. I am there because I'm choosing to be there. And how I deal with the cards that are there, that have been dealt out, is in my hands. And at that minute, when I'm making a choice for an action, nobody is forcing me to do anything. Or I'm making a choice for the thought in my head. And the subsequent action, the way I receive the world, nobody is forcing me. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about accepting, but choosing how you want to deal with that. Which are the battles? And I'll just come to this. And it's not something, it is, and this is not something we face just about gender discrimination at workplace, right? These kind of struggles, these kind of choices, these kind of questions we face in our personal life, when we interact with our families, when we interact with our in-laws, when we interact with our growing up children, especially teenage children, when we interact with the neighbors who don't see the way we do, when we interact with people around us who don't have the same values that we do. We face this day in and day out, all the time. And I think ultimately then that's what it brings on to how what is the way what part of myself I bring to that situation. Yeah. May I take this?
Sure. Should I have the mic or should I just go?
I think
We have one more mic. No, we have one more mic here.
As well for the video.
Okay. Hi. My name is Sinjini Sengupta. And
Speakers in the next slot.
yes.
I happen to be, and also interestingly, a part of workplace discrimination also falls within my within the topic that I will talk about.
Oh.
But before that, I just wanted to share my two pies on what you were talking about. And I'm sorry I got it a little late, like I entered late.
I'm sorry, you're Charu Sharma.
No, I'm
Okay.
Sinjini.
Next session.
So before that, just one or two lines on my capacity in which I'm going to talk. That is one, I consider myself a feminist. I run a support group on feminism. We actually, have a support group online, which is also a discussion forum. So we talk about several things under the umbrella. So I won't elaborate on that, but that is one background I have. The other background I have is I am also a spiritual seeker. Over the last 1 or 2 years, I won't say I have a long history behind it, but then, and just as you were talking, I think I also have the dilemma as to one. In spirituality, we are always asked to look inward and say, everything, as you were saying, my choice, I have made this choice, this is, my addiction. So, one is to own it up and to own your life and to sort of say that, yes, this is the available option and this is what I choose, this is where I go. And the other is, from a more, I would say, feminist point of view, is that, frankly, if it is so unfair, and if I still say that what happened to me is nobody else's business but in my control, and if I suffer it is only on me, I think it is also a form of victim blaming. Because we are victimized by our ecosystem, and then we are also asked to own it. I mean, we cannot solve everything under the sun just by ourselves. We need support, we need to first acknowledge the problem. So, obviously you can lose your head acknowledging the problem because there are so many. But at the same time, if you also say that it was my choice and if I wanted, say if I could not keep up with the pressures at the workplace, the discrimination, the glass ceiling. In fact, when I just got pregnant, a few months before that I got a very, good, a big award on leadership in my workplace. I am an actuary by profession, and just when the news went out that I was pregnant, and which is also not something I wanted to go out because frankly I would have held on to the news as long as I could because I know the discrimination that exists. Many of my friends have to leave their jobs because obviously they wouldn't be let to work till their maternity period and avail the benefits. But I tried to hold on and I did. But the kind of trauma that I went through, my gynecologist kept telling me that, you are perhaps harming the baby inside your womb. I was sitting up all night in trauma thinking of, I was given 3 times my work pressure, etc. So if I really say it's my choice that I work, if I did not work, I would lose all my economic independence. I would go back to, bank on someone else, and why should I? And I did not study for that. So basically, I think while we say it was my choice, we also have to say we are victims. If we do not acknowledge that, we would not be able to go anywhere. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I absolutely, I agree with your point in terms of, acknowledging what the reality that exists.
Yes.
And yes, in that perspective that you refer to, yes, we are victims, right?
Yes.
But only rejointed or the observation I want to make to that is, when I said, when I talk about the choice I'm making, it's about what do I want to do about that. It's not about being victimized and sitting apart, right? So when I say it's in our choice, it's about are we willing to take an action around it, correct? Obviously, absolutely. There is nobody in the same
often
mind
it
who
doesn't get
recommend
acknowledged.
nobody would say, it doesn't exist. It is there.
Yes.
Nobody would say you need to suffer and be quiet, right? What, in fact, the crux of this is coming from, are you willing to let that control the advancement of your career? That is the question. To put it in a different way, are you willing to let that glass ceiling or this victimization or the discrimination control your advancement? Are you willing to keep that as a reason to not do the things maybe you can try and do and be, as you said, be the victim and be quiet with hands tied, or you are willing to say, yes, I am a victim, okay, but let me see what I can do. So basically, when I say your choice, it means career advancement is whose need. That's the kind of choice I'm talking about. I want to advance in my career is my need. That's what I mean. Nobody is forcing me. So then what am I willing to do about this discrimination? Am I willing to do something? What can I do? That is the mindset I'm talking about. Not denying the reality that victimization exists.
I totally agree with you, but I mean, again, you know, I can play the devil's advocate and just
Yes,
continue.
absolutely.
Yeah. So the thing is that it is one thing. I mean, whether I want to advance in my career is just one of the many life questions. If my household share of duty is so biased that on an average, I think the world average is around 70 to 80% on the female spouse, and career advancement is only one of the advancements I want to make in life. I also want to advance as a mother, as a parent, so basically it actually comes to selecting one of the many options, whereas ideally a conducive atmosphere would have helped you to have all of it. What now happens is, if you are all tooth and nail towards I will stick on to this path of mine, I have to let go of few others. Because you have to, have that battle. And of course, you are talking about glass ceiling in the workplace, but that obviously doesn't preempt that there is no ceiling in the house or in the family, in the society. So essentially, what women are having to do is to be able to make a career advancement. Many of the people are actually having to make very harsh life decision, which is eating them up emotionally as well as impacting the rest of the family. So, I mean, the thing is that I think it is also an awareness and overall social education to allow them that time, to allow them the conducive environment. We are not here to fight battles, we are here to thrive. And that becomes a battle because of this inequality.
True. Absolutely. So definitely something needs to be done. Things are being done and we can all contribute with that being done. But is it in our control as to when it changes?
Not only, but yes.
But it is in our circle of influence to do something about it.
So exactly, sorry. So exactly what I said is we have to work harder than the male.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
So it's just constantly a challenge. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, so we were talking about making a choice between consciously doing something and choosing not to act. So if you are a victim and you want to take a certain step, and that might have even inverse kind of reaction from people. Because in an organization, if you choose, I want you to understand what is a good point, good starting point. When you start to speak up, when it happens for the first time, because I have become very sensitive to it. But after my experience with the think tank, and in think tank, this is the culture. So if it happens once, I have taken a conscious decision that I will speak up. I will go and talk to someone about it. I will just stay quiet, or I will document it. And at the right time, if I'm angry, I just document it. At the right time, whoever is concerned, the person, I'm going to send it on after making some toning down my emotions a little bit. But I think my mother, who's also in a position of power, she doesn't feel that way. She feels that, because we have a generation gap or a generation gap during our times, we did not speak up. They just kept working hard. And then they started, your efforts do pay off at a certain point of time. My approach is very different. I act and I speak up when things are unfair to me. And I feel that works for me much better.
Absolutely.
Because even I'm a researcher, and I'm a researcher at one of the institutions where they're all engineers. And in fact, professors have a very an attitude where they would not let you speak up. So if I had a problem and I would go and I approached my professor, he said, you should not talk like that. You should not talk like that. And I was not disrespectful to him. I was just voicing an opinion. But he wanted to shut me up that time. And it just kept accumulating 2-3 times, and ultimately I had to change the supervisor. And it affected my relationship with him. It kind of had a very different kind of working with the head of the department, who was a very mature person. But it kind of again spirals. It creates sort of a grapevine, because that every person in an organization has that mentality and certain opinion about a woman, that she's not fitting in. This is how a woman should behave, and she's just not fitting in to that particular thing, and she's
Right.
So I think how do we change that? How do we change that in an organization?
Yeah. So one is, I think you're absolutely right in speaking up, in acting. not hesitating. I think that's another of the principles, I think. Don't hesitate to act. Right? And so that's very important. You know. Take an action whenever. Even a thought comes into your head, an idea or something you want to share. The second part is how do you change the organizations? Right? That's where one takes the call on what is the necessary circle of influence and control. What can I do to change mindsets? How much am I willing to do? And like she also talked about, balancing. Is there another option where it is better for me, or do I struggle here? Do I have the bandwidth to, to put that effort to try and create a change around me?
I don't know, maybe a very remote and perhaps also, I don't know, inappropriate example to say, but still something came, just as I'm talking, I'm speaking my mind. I have often seen that people who have, fortunately or unfortunately, people who have special children, right? If you give birth to a special child, I've seen many of the times the parents, and especially the mothers, they actually, if they have to leave their jobs, they actually form an activism around social awareness. I mean, other than bringing up the child in the most, in the best way that they can, they also consciously work towards an awareness to give them a better world.
Yes.
I think as women, each of us, instead of ensuring our own career development or finding our own balance or trying to fake a superwoman, mentality while actually letting it eat ourselves inside being unhappy, I'm sorry, we should actually, I don't know how much our, everything else would allow, but as we ourselves get aware, it is very essential that we also create that awareness. We go out and talk. I mean, whenever there is a scope, find someone and tell them, see, this is what we face.
Absolutely.
I mean, it may sound like a rant, but it is not. We should go and spread the awareness and try to create a better world rather than just taking care of our own businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know many successful women who are part of Women Mentor Network, who mentor other young professionals and women, to not give up on their career and to face the challenges. And they are officially part of Mentor Network. They unofficially mentor many women, super successful women who talk on forums like like you said, and they come up with their own personal examples, the personal struggle they face, how they handle it, so that others can learn from it. I know of, I'm working with a CEO, she's CEO of a large MNC, and she's shared with me about her passion now. She says so many women will drop out in the middle management. That's a reality.
Maternity dropout, I mean, huge.
Yeah, they just drop out because she said that's one of the things
become obsolete in 2 years' time.
Exactly. But I want to do that. I want to help them.
I want to see women who conceive. Ultimately, there is so much of bias. I've been asked in interviews in big organizations like Deloitte and ECG or by HR, when I'm planning to get married and what are your plans to start your family if you get married?
There you go.
I think that's a ridiculous question to ask. And a woman, HR who's a woman, she herself is asking you that question. And I'm glad I didn't join, but how many fresh women entrepreneurs can the economy sustain? I want to be part of a very common setup.
Absolutely.
I want to be part of a large organization. Always.
Yes.
I don't want to have my own startup because I want to fight it out. I really want to fight it out because I have a qualification equivalent to a man. But I feel sometimes I don't have a choice. I feel I'm more independent and I'll be calmer and happier person if I have my own thing. Like many of my friends do. Because that's the only way you can balance your work and your personal life. I think there's no other way out. Or you take a government kind of a thing where, but there also there is accountability.
Everywhere there will be accountability, and I know many women who are CXOs, CEOs in large organizations. Hence, I find I cannot I can only look at them and say if they have done it, why can't I do it?
That's a trap. That's a trap.
Yeah?
If you look at Superman and you say why can't I do it, and you put yourself up to that, and let go your own happiness, own peace of mind, I would say that's a trap for women.
Don't let go of your happiness and peace of mind. Those women I know
The
are
super
happy.
woman is a super mom, super employee, super wife, super daughter-in-law, super daughter. How can, I mean, because they do it, we don't take care of their happiness index. We see them and we strive to become them. We become, at the end of the day, unhappy and stressed.
Yeah, no.
That's
So
a trap.
don't do it if it makes you unhappy and stressed. I'm saying they are there because they are happy.
They are not. It's very
That's
hard
like
to
a-
believe
that's
it
a-
is. It's very hard to
That's
believe.
it.
Those who are not happy, they have given up. They have decided not to fight.
It is
And
very
that's a
difficult.
positive-
Personally,
They sacrifice
the women I
another
know-
part of their life for
Do
this.
we measure our happiness
Yes.
index like we measure our salaries? Do we?
It's like there's a book.
It's
I'm
subjective.
really intrigued by what
It's
you
very
said that
subjective,
you don't want to get into entrepreneurship, neither did I want to. But yeah, that's a different story. But there's a book called "The Lady You Are Not a Man" by Tamara. I'm not sure if you've read about it. She is into corporates, and she has
Radio City.
found her. Sorry.
Radio City. Radio City.
Yes,
is Radio
yes,
City.
yes.
Yeah.
So she has found her way through it, and she it's a funny kind of book, wherein she has put in her own experiences about the glass ceiling, about the social stigma, about the culture. It has a lot to do with culture as well. The women in India, the way the women in India face glass ceiling is way different than people in the US or women in the US or the UK face. So it has a lot to do with culture as well. But she has very amazingly put it through, her experience of glass ceiling, and how she shattered it and reached there. And it is a beautiful book. You might, really enjoy reading it.
So that's what I was, likewise, I met her also in one of the forums, she gave a very inspiring talk. So there are, to answer that one, there are women who are successful who go around, are helping
They
others.
should, yes, that is
Yeah.
the way for
And-
a
And I personally know a lot of women who are, and to the second part, they are happy. Yeah. So happy, are they happy, not happy, we cannot judge unless one knows them personally. Right? And at least the women I
I'm
know.
not going at individual level. What I'm saying is in a macro sense.
Mm.
If you devote your priorities to become successful here, successful there, successful there, successful there, so in a macro sense, in a more, I would say, more logical way. I'm not saying one person, a Shikha Sharma or, I'm not going into that kind of a thing.
Mm.
What I'm saying is, what does your logic say? To be able to fight it out and put up your hand every time an opportunity comes at your office. At the same time, to be beside your daughter or your son when they have fever. To be able to be at every puja your mother-in-law conducts. To be able to be at every office party your husband has. Do you think logically it is something that sounds anywhere remote to general happiness and peace of mind? I mean, I'm not talking about individual 1 or 2 or 3 very empowered and very, very, I would say idol kind of.
No, but it ultimately comes down to that.
They
no?
came from
It comes down to you, basically.
It ultimately comes
Boils
down
down to you as to what is your choice,
True, exactly.
what brings you the most happiness.
That is
So
exactly
only
what I'm
select
saying.
that.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't do things which you're not happy
That
about.
is exactly what I'm
Select
saying.
what you would like to do.
Balance is a dangerous word. That is exactly
No,
what
no,
I'm
balance
saying.
is not dangerous. I'm a working woman, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I will not say it proudly, but I'm successful at both what I do, at work as well as at home, because I have good support. Support is very important.
Absolutely.
Support of parents, support of your husband, support of your
Absolutely.
children. But yes, I did give up my career, that I could not go on to higher levels because I needed time at home.
Yeah.
It was my own choice.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah, I love doing what I'm doing. It's my own choice. So I had to basically give my career a break. Not a break, a stunted growth basically. But I don't mind because I'm happy with what I have.
There you go.
So
Yes.
there goes. And I think with that you will have to give your conclusion.
Yes.
Because I think we are going a little
Oh no.
short on time.
Oh, no, I was
something
just.
to say.
Yeah.
You had something to say.
Yes, please.
I have really loved this discussion, and it just makes me think, and I have a little bit of a U.S. perspective, just because that's where I'm coming from, but what I'm hearing is that it's ultimately up to you, and that it's our job to break through our own biases, our own judgments that we all have, and that we all bring to the table. And one quick anecdote is that I went to a very intense graduate school, and I was in the public policy, public sector studies, but I really wanted to take some business classes. And so I took the Women in Leadership class. We did the Harvard case studies about mentorship and about the glass ceilings, and we all talked about it every week, several times a week. And there was a large cohort of my public sector colleagues in this class that was being led by a woman who shattered her glass ceiling in Wall Street at a young age, in the 20s, had a kid, very powerful woman. And over a few weeks, we realized that it was very divided, the discussion between all the business MBA girls and all public policy girls, and we could not get anywhere. And it was just watching the comments fly. She stopped the class and had us do a pair off, one public policy, one MBA, and we took a little quiz about each other, and we answered questions about how we thought the other person spent their time, what they liked to eat, where they vacationed, and after we discussed it, all the biases just rolled out, and it was the most impactful and talked about for many semesters afterwards. That day where we all broke down our own biases of us thinking that these women are money grabbing and hungry and also just really powerful, but they actually, some of them wanted to go in the public sector, and they realized that some of us public policy girls came from the private sector, and it was just the best moment. That it was a very powerful lesson to understand that ultimately it does start with us, and we all bring this, whether it's woman, man, woman, and to look for that mentorship and to make the decisions ultimately of how you maneuver that. Does come from you, and how powerful those decisions are that you walk in the door with, of how you're going to do that.
Very interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a, you can imagine the power of the exercise.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I mean years later, I remember it. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If you permit, Bhavna, I'll just share one further example to you. The CEO I talked about, the CEO India of the large MNC. She told me that I met her a couple of weeks ago for something. So in fact, I met her a couple of weeks ago to ask her to mentor somebody I'm working with, and I'm a coach for that person, and I said you mentor her because she wants to grow. This girl wanted to grow. So she said, yeah, absolutely, she was fully into it, she's passionate about that. And she said that, last 1 year, she had been coached to take on the Asia Pacific role. She was one of the contenders. Then she said, towards the end of that period, I myself opted out because I would like to get home by 7 for my kids, right?
Yeah, but that's her choice.
She's happy, right? She's making the choice.
I know, we are all taking our choices given the circumstances, and that circumstantial difference is what I'm talking about. Given the circumstances, you have to admit disclaimer of those 3 words.
Absolutely.
Given our circumstances cannot be taken off us.
See, when I quit my corporate job, I was with PwC, right? But I made a decision to leave it because I really wanted to be with my kid. Nobody asked me to do it. My husband also didn't say, no, you're the woman, you have to sit and take care. But I quit because it's like 1 year, such a darling, I just wanted to be with her all the time. That's it. Good. So yeah. Okay. So to conclude, there is no conclusion. I think the only thing which I live by and say is that ultimately it is the choice that we make, where our locus of control is, what we want to do, and how we want to be conducting our life.
So thank you so much, Gowri. That was really wonderful. And thank you, ladies, for the lovely insights we had for our job. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love this sessions. Yes, sure.
Let me do that.
I'll excuse myself and go to the next hall. I'm volunteering there. Group photo, yes, let's not forget. Yes, I am.
You are.
Yes.
When you end
I'm just going there.
Sorry, when you ended, was there a computer open and back here?
Computer open and the back there.
Was it the same? Yeah.
Are you sure it's CM5, this room? Did you come to this particular room?
Gowri, come. Come, ladies.
Should I just put them?
Ladies, for a group photo, please. Yeah, I'll be late for my duty in the next hall. Please come.
Oh, we spoke already so much, so great. I've done it at time and came I saw that it was moved to 9:45. So I then I told you to choose a subject. So I thought topics, but at the yoga. And it's wonderful way of representing to it. Because I was talking about
I'm sure you do well.
That's why it's
This is something that we should take as a site.
That's why Earth is also Mother Earth.
Yeah.
It's not Father Earth.
we are only up here on the pedestal.
The speaker.
Can you have the previous slides where she can have her slides?
yes.
So that's okay. Please don't.
Oh, how do you escape? Yep.
Very good session, actually.
Very interactive.
Very good.
And thanks, Gowri, for that.
Thank you so much.
It's all good.
Anyone want photo from phone?
No.
It's the first time we are sitting.
Very
First time he asked me.
First time.
Yes, I will every time.
Actually, it's like my call. I was very sure that we'll get autograph.
Thank you so much.
Gowri totally loved you.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for this. I'm looking for a coach because I thought I had good and she's not. But yeah, it's great. I know we can take away a lot of it.
So I'm just going to stop all the social media and then all very good. I don't know if they will.
Did she tell you that last night was a little... No, it's okay. It wasn't just like a rejection. It was also so I'm just like sort of like low. Didn't go to my colleague's presentation today or anything in the smart cities. I was just like, you know what, I just need to like, hang out and chill and make sure that I'm like almost done. Yeah. You're not gonna go.
Yeah, I'm right there, yes.
Sounds like.
Thank you.
7:15, and I can catch the
How's your day going?
Good. I'm working on the presentation.
Tamara?
She stepped out for just a second.
Okay.
She'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like 300 rupees or something.
Is that yours, sorry?
Yeah. I didn't check it out. Thank you. I have one that I like keep more, and I was gonna wear it, but I just like wear it. It's really embroidered.
Where'd you get it? Here?
I got it down south actually. We both have worked with a nonprofit that works down in the Chennai area.
Is it, how much was it? Can I ask? Like approximately how much you paid? I
It
bought one the other day and I'm like, I have no idea if I overpaid for this or not. I probably
It depends
did.
on like the work and the embroidery and all of that. They can range anywhere from like 200 to 300 rupees all the way up to like 3,000 rupees or something.
So like $500, 500 American dollars. Is that high?
Yeah.
How much?
500.
American dollars? That would be a very, very, very nice one.
Yeah.
Is it a sewn one, a pre-fitted, or is it just the yards that you wrap yourself?
No, they had fabric at the end. There's a lot of beading on it.
That might be why.
Yeah.
But it's really
like,
detailed.
beads and crystals and things.
That's probably why. Yeah. So this.
It's
this
not
just
a
has,
fabric like that has like fabric. It's more like beads and
like
intricate, and she had to size me like the end had for the top.
Yeah, yeah.
And it had beads on the neck and back and arms, I think.
You definitely can get saris that expensive for sure. It's just a very nice one. So.
Oh, okay. Well, it was the kind of thing where it's like I probably should have looked it up before I went shopping, but I didn't. I just knew that I wanted one.
Yeah, a lot of the time, if you go to a store and they hear or see that you're from the West, then they will often quadruple the price, so you want to bargain.
There was one that I really wanted that was $700 American, and she would not go down.
She wouldn't go down.
But it was it was like red with totally. I mean, it was really nice, but still, it kind of felt like. But I was like, my range is like nothing more than 500. She was like, well, then this is where we're at. So that kind of made me feel when she wouldn't negotiate the other one, I thought that's kind of weird, right? So maybe it's.
If you're in a high-end shop, usually the prices are fixed. So it sounds like.
Wait, this is your daughter?
Oh.
Oh, this is your daughter. I was like, wait.
Hi, I'm Kiara. Tamara, nice to meet you. I'll be moderating for you today.
Oh,
yeah.
So pleased
yeah. This is my mother, Nola. She's here with me.
Oh, I'm so happy.
So where are you guys coming from? Where's Sorensen?
In Utah.
Utah.
In the USA.
Okay. I'm from Michigan, so.
Heard of it?
Yeah, you've heard of it?
I think I've been there. No?
To Michigan?
Leo?
Maybe. Detroit, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think through it. You can see Canada from your house, right?
Do you have
I do,
yeah. Okay.
And it's a little tricky, and I tested the video that I have linked in, and it didn't work. So, I have...
Oops. No.
So, and the, also like the...
Is this you?
That's me. And then on this blank screen
Okay.
is where, let's give it one more test run. When you scroll over, it's a media, it says use media available. Time not available.
Do they not have it on this computer?
So what I did is I have it on I have it also, but you got to flip to my USB disk.
Is it here? No.
So you have to go to the folder and then disk, and it's this first
This one?
And that's the video.
Okay. So when we get here, you just tell me when you want me to cue it up. Okay.
Oh, let's take my hair off. Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
This up.
And she goes right to Tamara.
Oh, I'm sorry. I called you Tamara. I'm sorry, Tamara.
There's so many ways to say it. Tamara, like tomorrow with a southern accent. See you tomorrow. So I know
Well, it's not an E. It is an A. So I should have paid attention.
I am gonna need, since we are sharing excitedly, this space.
I'll give you a time.
I need the 2:30, the 15.
Yeah, I'll give you 15 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because we have another woman. Yeah.
She's not here yet, but.
Oh, she's at, there was a line in the bathroom, so I think she went upstairs, but she's here.
Oh, okay.
We were both in the last session. Yeah, you know what?
No,
she came at 11 because that was her time, but she didn't know that they had switched her to 9 a.m., so she completely missed it. And so then, since I'm solo, she's, adding on here, but which is great, but at the same time, there was still some issues today. So be ready for anything.
And people could sign up. People were allowed to sign up for parallel sessions. Yeah, I see. I didn't recognize that somebody would be signing up for my session either. So they, you know what I mean? It was I thought it was supposed to be like a 1 hour
thing.
But we got an invitation to sign up with other people's 1 hour presentation as a panel presenter.
And I didn't understand that's what was happening when I put panel.
Well, me either. Because it wasn't clear at all.
I know. So you have like 2 speaking times. I was like, I don't know what.
And then a round table, yeah.
And it's like not your your topic, and so it's like a little bit of a mismatch. So we're just rolling.
We're rolling with it. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, then if you're gonna time me, I don't need my phone. I will.
Okay, we'll just. Ma. Did you find those last ones very interesting, right?
Which ones did you guys hear?
Well, we went to, it was about education in India, and so the one fellow spoke about the engineering situation. It's just really fascinating. It was, yeah.
Such a great insight, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. Hello, I'm Chiara. I'll be moderating for you today.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's true, you can.
Okay,
So I'm going to give the 15-minute
sure.
to Tamara, and then we'll have you come up and.
Sure.
And then at the end, we'll give some time for Q&A.
Perfect.
And then both of you can come up and we'll just let them. Okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Let's see.
So maybe I can just shift to that side.
Do you have a PowerPoint?
No,
or
I don't.
anything?
I'll
Okay.
just
Okay. Okay, so let's just check on the time. We've got about 2 minutes. Let me just see if there's anybody out here.
Do that little hustle. How are you doing? Feeling good? You found a necklace.
I brought
it. Worked.
Thanks.
Works great.
Thank you. She let out my sleeves too as a tailor. I was like putting on my circulation.
With my nail clippers and like things, I was just like snip, and then I use the thing as the hook. So I was like, resourceful.
Yeah, you are. Look at that.
Yeah. Okay.
Arms on those are always so tight. Yeah.
I've never tried one on, but yeah, it seems like it's.
I was like, I cannot wear this.
I don't understand what anatomically is like off for this, but it just is.
Love to have you for all. Yeah, now she's taking back on us.
I was going to say that. I ask very difficult questions.
Oh dear. And we have already done the answers. We have already given that.
Depends on whether topic has.
That's not mine. Now I don't know what I opened.
I brought these in for you.
Thank you. I brought my backpack on purpose. I've got like 3 in my backpack. I'm just gonna put this down so I know which one's mine.
Where's it? Okay. Is he recording? Did he leave? Live streaming.
Ready? Okay. I think you're going to need the mic.
Struk.
Yeah. There it is.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to have our two speakers today, and I will encourage everyone to please take notes. We want to engage in a lively conversation with both of our speakers today. We have Tamara Struk, Director of Stores and Impact Center, and Sinjini Sengupta, who is an actuary, writer, and columnist here from India. But we'll begin today's presentation with Tamara Struk, Director of Stores and Impact Center in the U.S. of A. Tamara.
Woo! Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I have to say what an honor it has been to be here at this conference and surrounded by such powerful, intelligent, and beautiful women, and to be inspired by all of the comments over the last few days, and I know I will be for the rest of the evening and tomorrow as well. So, by way of introduction, I'm talking about catalyzing social impact through investment, and I'm going to do that through two stories. And I'm going to highlight the stories of two men, and while doing so, talk about where I've been, where I am, and where I'd like to go in this topical realm. So the story begins when I decided to go to New York for grad school. So the next slide, please. Everyone might be a little bit familiar with that skyline. So I packed up my little car and moved across the country, and I went to New York for grad school to study public policy. Before I had studied public health, I decided that the public sector was for me, and that I wanted to keep serving, but I wanted to do so in a manner that actually had impact. And so while I was in grad school, I did sort of this hippie approach where I took classes at the business school, and I took classes at the industry relations school, industrial relations school, and I took some consulting projects on for emerging markets. And all of that worked in a way to bring me to know about a man called Chuck Feeney. And, oh, great. Perfect. Next slide, please. So, I went to grad school to Cornell, and while I was at Cornell, I learned about another Cornellian named Chuck. Chuck is an Irish American, and he was from New Jersey. He had to work very hard. He came from a very humble and a very poor background, but because he served in the war and he went to school at Cornell on the GI Bill, he was able to turn some things around for him. And he ended up being very successful in his business ventures. In fact, he was the founder of duty-free shopping. And so you may not know him by name, but many of you have probably shopped in one of the airports or one of the places that he has started one of his business ventures. So he and his partners were billionaires. And by the time he was 50, he decided to sell it all and give all of his money away for philanthropic purposes. And that's why I put up this motto of giving while living, which is what Chuck Feeney really embodied in his work. And he started a group called the Atlantic Philanthropies. And when I learned about Atlantic, I went to go work for them. And I worked through a variety of different tasks. But what I learned throughout that journey was just the magnitude of what one person and the effect of one person can have on a lot of different communities. Let me tell you just a little bit about what he's done. This humble man has helped large masses of people in different areas of the world. He has facilitated the peace process in Northern Ireland. He helped grow the knowledge economies in the Republic of Ireland, the biotech sector in Australia. He helped change the healthcare processes in South Africa, in Vietnam, and in the United States of America. He helped abolish the death penalty for the juvenile death penalty. He's helped millions of children have greater access to education. He's worked on immigration reform, racial intolerance issues, and he wasn't afraid to tackle these huge issues and to do so in a way that was really strategic and in a way that really helped have a big impact on his big bets. So Unfortunately, the Atlantic Philanthropies closed down last December. Fortunately, though, because that was actually a vision and mission of his. He wanted to give away all his money while he was alive because he said, it's more fun that way, if you can do it while you're alive. And so, years ago, they decided that 2016 was the end of the Atlantic Philanthropies, and that's when I ended up leaving, along with many other colleagues, knowing that my time had come to an end, but that we were all part of this really interesting and amazing process to help shut down the philanthropy and to help him fulfill his life's mission of giving while living. He inspired me so much that I took everything that I learned there and I moved back across the country to another town. So maybe you'll recognize this next slide and this next cityscape, or you may not, because that is Salt Lake City, Utah, where I just moved to a few months ago. I found another philanthropist who was actually also doing some good while he was living. Next slide, please. And his name is Jim Sorensen, and his motto is doing well by doing good. Jim Sorensen has endowed the University of Utah a large grant worth millions of dollars to start the Sorensen Impact Center, and that's where I now work as of a few months ago. And so this is now where I'm going. So at the Sorensen Center, there are some questions that are tackled and some big themes that they think about there. Jim Sorensen actually made his name by developing several industry categories. One was digital video compression software. The other was mass market video phone productions, and through that has also produced and invented the whole area of impaired hearing phones and ability for transcribing, and has made a name for himself really in the media world. And so unfortunately, maybe I don't work directly for this philanthropist, but I'm definitely associated with him just by working for the center that he started. And at Sorensen Impact Center, we say that we're a think and do tank. So not only are we a think tank, but we also sit down and tackle some of the challenges that people bring to us. Companies, governments, social enterprises, philanthropists. And so they come to the Sorensen Impact Center and they hire the different staff there to work on some of the questions that they need help answering and through the themes that we sort of tackle. One of these themes is impact investing and social enterprise. So over the last few years, there have been a few $1 billion put into the impact investing industry. That needle has to move to the trillions. And how amazing would it be if we can amass more private and philanthropic wealth and capital into a place that it can be used for social good, so that you're not just getting a return on your investment, but that you're also making a difference in the social sphere, in the environmental sphere. Another big theme that we talk about is public-private partnerships. And that is when governments, private sector, philanthropic sector all come together to form a partnership and create a structure or a model that solves a social sector issue altogether. There is a very famous sort of growing trend that started in the UK and in Australia and is now in the US called Pay for Success programs or social impact bonds. And the Sorensen Center is one of the intermediaries that now works in the United States to help structure some of these deals that are financed and then has an outcome payer at the end, whether or not it's successful. And these rigorous programs are very heavily influenced by metrics, by evaluation, by data. And this is the only way that these are slowly proven to be successful. And some of these have now started being grown into the developing countries and are now called development impact bonds, and that's actually why I'm in India, to try to help start one of the first development impact bonds in sanitation. India is actually the home of the first development impact bond for girls' education in Rajasthan, which is very exciting. It's been going on for a few years. And so we're also looking and are in different conversations with Tata, with a few other partners, to see if we can help mobilize the resources necessary to solve that problem once and for all, and then to see how we can scale it. So speaking of scale, that's another big theme that we work on at Sorensen, and we are looking at how there's a lot of success in some of these projects, but the issues that we're tackling are vast and grand. So how can we scale some of the successes that we're having in order to make a larger impact? Another theme that we think about a lot is impact measurement and evaluation. We have to know whether or not we're moving the needle in either way, and we have to know whether or not the solutions that are being brought to the table are having the results that are necessary for solving these problems. So rigorous data, also another big theme. The thoughtful collection and analysis and visualization of the data behind some of the issues and of the problems being tackled is one of the only ways that we're actually going to have an idea of whether or not something is being done or whether or not we're moving forward with some of these challenges. And another huge theme that we talk about is results. We have the tools in our hands more than ever now to transform some of the issues in the social sector, but it's got to be performance driven, and we have to know what we are actually doing in this space. So it has, the next slide is actually a little video that I wanted to share to help introduce and wrap up my introduction of the Sorensen Center and their work. We'll just toggle to this other video, and it's very short, it's a minute and a half, but I really think it's worth watching.
These days, global progress seems eclipsed by social problems. It can be easy to despair and tempting to tune out. But at Sorensen Impact, we're committed to catalyzing hope. We've collaborated with the White House, top financiers, the British Parliament, even the Vatican to find answers. We know the solutions are out there. Big ideas in New Delhi, Nairobi, and New York. So we scour the earth to find daring nonprofits, innovative governments, and socially focused businesses. Then we empower them to become sustainable, scalable, impactful. Our investments are bringing electricity to low-income homes in India and internet to remote classrooms in Africa. Our partnerships are opening doors for children to attend transformative preschools and drug users to enter proven treatment programs. We challenge governments to look at the causes of social problems, collaborate across sectors to build solutions, and then measure if they actually work. We are the bold brainchild of social pioneer Jim Sorensen, championing his vision of doing well while doing good. At our headquarters, ideas collide among investors, data scientists, policy experts, academics, and students. Since 2013, we've invested more than $100 million, empowered over 300 social entrepreneurs, and mentored hundreds of future leaders. To learn more, visit www.sorensenimpact.com.
Thank you. So there is one question that has sort of stuck with me through my journey through Cornell, through my journey at Atlantic Philanthropies, and now that I think it has a really great chance of being answered at Sorensen as well, and wherever else my journey takes me. And that's the last issue that I'll mention, which is cross-sector collaboration. Honestly, I would see my friends after undergrad starting nonprofits and having such great ideas about how to move the needle on some of the social issues that we're facing. And I thought to myself, well, that's a really great idea, but maybe there's someone already doing something similar, or there's a way that you can collaborate, or that you can piggyback or partner with someone. I honestly think that this cross-sector collaboration is one of the largest themes that we have to look forward to, and I hope that within the next 10 or 20 years, this is actually going to be the mainstream way of doing our work. I had a few days ago a visit to the doctor, and I'll end with this little story. And it was a physical therapist that was just working on my shoulder muscles, and I'm used to going to all these therapists and doctors, and they say, well, there's something the matter with you, let's figure out how to fix this. And when I was sitting down with him and he finished his exercises, he looked at me and he said, there's actually a lot right with you and your body. And that struck me in a way that was so powerful and impactful, because when I think about all these issues and all the problems that we think about and how massive they are, then I remember what he said, and I think, there's actually a lot right with the world. There's actually a lot right with the people, the women, everybody that's working in it already to collaborate and to gather the data needed to see how to solve some of the questions and to get the answers that we need to move this needle forward is already being done. And so just with that, I want to say that whether or not I come to India again, and I hope so, depending on how the sanitation project goes, or wherever projects that we end up doing next, I hope that these themes are relevant to everybody that are here, and that we'll be able to take those with us into any project that we do, and remember the power in collaboration and in partnership. Thank you so much.
Before we move on to our next presentation, are there specific questions for Tamara? Any thoughts? All right, let's go on to the presentation, and then we'll take some robust discussion here. Let me pull up the slide. We'll make it robust. Okay, so next up, we are going to invite Sinjini, Sengupta, actuary, writer, and columnist. Give her a big warm welcome.
First, a big thanks, Tamara, and especially with that awesome, optimistic ending. Yes. I'm sort of, taking a back step towards what I'm about to say. Because, of course, she set the stage right there. I mean, when we go to the doctor and say, it's paining here, it's aching there, all the cells are multiplying just in the right way, the blood, dilation is just right, and everything like 99.999% is just right. And so, yes, I think that should have been a closure, in a way. And so, I would try to remember to make sure to repeat that sentence once more at the end. But for now, I'll take you a little bit towards the problem area. And I'm actually, in a way, happy to see the combination of the audience we have here today. Because I wanted to talk about India. For the last 2 or 3 days or 4 days at this World Women Economic Forum, most of the sessions that I chose to attend myself spoke a lot about self, looking inwards, trying to heal ourselves, the power of one. And at the same time, almost in the same sentence, it also spoke a lot about the universe. I mean, sending a message out there, getting it back, etc. I'm trying to, hover somewhere, finding a sort of geometric average between the two, and I'm going to talk about our country. Some specific things, some not so specific things. Because what I understand where India stands today is perhaps where more developed nations like yours, like many of ours, like many of yours would have stood maybe a generation back, maybe a few decades back. So I would really love to hear back from you at the end of what I'm going to speak, to see what lessons we can learn from you, what lessons, what are the ideas that come forth from the topics I'm going to talk about. Having said that, how do we look at India? When we see India, what do we feel? I think as tourists, which perhaps quite a few of you are, India would perhaps look quite like a fairy tale. Nice places to visit, nice shops to shop from. From where I see, and from the multiple pairs of glasses that I put on when I try to look at India, one, when I look at India from an actuary's point of view, which I am, I'm an actuary and I worked in the insurance sector for long 10 years, I see India to be obviously a very prospective customer base. There's a lot of work to do, and which is where the state sort of falls as a defaulter and the insurance can fill up. When I look at India from a more economist point of view, which I studied economics in university, India is definitely a developing nation, not a developed one. India is on its way. As a feminist, which I am also, India is in a deep crisis. There is no denying about this. There is no two words about this. Every time we try to deny it, we are getting into a denial. From a sociologist point of view, which is something I'm very deeply interested in as I work with several issues in the gender front, I think India is finding its own balance, but at the same time is in sort of a disequilibrium at the moment. There are clashes, even though we always talk about India as very rich traditional values, cultural heritage, etc., and ancient wisdoms. A lot of that is very patriarchal. And we have to come to admit that, to accept that, to be able to do something about it. So yes, India is in a state of disequilibrium. And lastly, if I have been anywhere on my spiritual path in trying to do whatever I can do, I think India is too on its own spiritual path, since obviously ages and hundreds and thousands of years, trying to find itself. And now is a new now that it is all the more trying to find itself. I will actually go into a very typical Indian societal structure, how things work here, and especially from a financial dependence or independence point of view. Because as much as we say that We have found our own equilibrium, we have found our own balance. I took my decision and stand by it. And as much as, is that right? As much as we say that, I have my peace of mind, I chose my life's decisions to be in the office or to be at home, to be beside my daughter's bed or to be beside my ailing parents, whatever I say, it is only circumstantial. And we have to admit that, we have to accept that, and we have to see where it lies. So what I thought is I will begin with a very typical average example, a family structure. 2 spouses, 1 husband, 1 wife. I will just take a very normal average thing. Both spouses have their sets of parents. They perhaps have 1 child or 2 children. So what is the exact financial dependence structure in that small family unit? In India, other than the public sector jobs, which again have very meager pension amounts, the private sector jobs have no pensions. The average retirement age is 58 to 60, and I'm sure each of you will agree, and as an actuary I'll emphasize it even further, our longevity is going to go off the roof. By this generation, by the next generation, we are going to live beyond a good 80 or 90 years. So our old age parents definitely are financially dependent. There is little that is done or provided for from the state side. The government really does not have an old age system or the long-term care in the US as you would know it to be, or as an actuary, I actually studied the UK system, the national health system, and in my work I also worked with the healthcare, which unpopularly is known as the Obamacare. So so obviously the kind of state support that is available in terms of if someone falls ill, that is absolutely not there in India, absolutely not. We have less than 1% of our GDP allocated to the health funds, and that is only for the poor and with a long queue, something that is sort of unviable in a way. The young kids, the education. There is very little state education other than for the poor, the midday meal, or for people who cannot go to school, to coax them to school is one thing, but there is no quality young age education provided by the state. So it is actually going off the roof on that sector also. A very significant part of the family's earnings actually go into child education. And in fact, the MBA classes and the primary school tuition fees almost equal each other nowadays. Come to the 2 spouses, the male and the female. Only the very last session, right before this one, actually, she made a very good presentation about the glass ceiling in the workplace. I mean, we cannot talk enough about that. The kind of environment that is there, you of course start off with a very, and again I'm talking about very privileged people, not about girls who risked being killed as an infanticide. I'm not talking about that. We are here a very privileged class of people who have been brought up equally as our brothers, and we have got a job in the right time, got married perhaps in our right time, etc. Even then, once you enter the job as a young worker, you are there. First 3-4 years, once you get married, there's a lot of the attrition that happens right after marriage, because the marital home in India is defined as not the spouses alone, but essentially the woman goes to live with the boy's family, and you see there is an immediate conflict of interest. As much as they may like to say that it is all right, there is a conflict of interest as to what they really want. And it affects your motivation level, it affects the things you can do, etc. The share of household duties. I cannot say enough. Obviously, it is a worldwide crisis, and in India, it is perhaps a lot more. The child care, the household chores, everything falls on the woman. Come to that in the workplace itself. If you have not left your job when you got married, after you had your kid, where is the child care facility? Is it safe enough? When I had my daughter, first when I felt pregnant, and I tried to keep that news closed as much as I could for a long time, because I knew what was coming. Most of my friends had to leave their jobs because the workplace makes it very difficult for them to survive. They don't want you to go on a paid leave for 3 months without knowing if you're going to come back. And your requirements will be different. If your child falls sick, you have to take. So they don't want it. If you fight it out, even then, once the child is born, Where is the safe childcare? You hear all kinds of horror stories around daycares, around the nannies you keep at home. There is no list. I cannot list it out enough. And then, I will just come back to that family structure. Again, if the wife is not working, what are her financial rights? If there is one spouse earning and one spouse not earning, and two sets of parents and kids, one or two or whatever it is, what are the financial rights of the wife? Is it simply maintenance? Is it a say in the financial decision of the family in terms of whether to buy real estate or stocks or something else? What happens if the marriage does not go well? What does she get? What is the division? What is the right thing? What happens in practice? And does it give her a life choice to choose as she wills? Or does it limits her choices? Because with financial abilities come a lot of self-esteem, and without it, you take it away. So where do you get the confidence to be able to stand up on your own feet and do what is right for your happiness? Because if you have to, at the end of the day, depend on somebody else. And what happens to her pair of parents? This is one question, and why I am coming to this is, very recently there was this one verdict from the Supreme Court of India. Very often nowadays we keep getting news of the verdicts on divorce cases, because India is, as I said, at a crossroad. Discovering divorce is obviously a very this generation and perhaps maximum last generation thing. It has not been there for a long time, and now every new verdict, every new case scenario gives us a new area to think of. And very recently there was this case in India where they said that the husband was granted divorce because the wife wanted him not to stay with the parents. So the wife wanted the husband and the wife to stay separately, while the husband wanted to stay back with his parents in the same family home. And since the husband did not agree to it, the Supreme Court gave a verdict of a divorce, going against the wife in favor of the husband. Whether this is right or wrong, because in my feminist group, I run a group where we actually hold a lot of discussion, and I saw most of the people were very vocal about saying that it was wrong, the wife was wronged with. But again, what about human rights for the old parents? If they don't stay together, which is totally understandable. I myself I don't get along very well with them, and the thing is that, my aspirations to have a loggerhead with their, I will be very frank and personal here, but at the same time, what are their financial rights? What is the financial right of the wife? Where do we draw a line, and what are the standards we look at? Where is the solution? And the most problematic area is that we very easily talk about gender crimes. Because it comes in the newspaper, we know what is right, what is wrong, this shouldn't have happened, we go on candlelight vigils. When this comes to our day-to-day familial or social issues, we shove it under the carpet. We say it is a personal problem. Where we go wrong is, we do not understand that personal is political. If it is me facing it, if it is you facing it, if it is you facing it, it is time we talk about it. It is time we don't it's not a personal shame at all. And this is exactly where, in the last session also as she was talking, I had, just put in this point that maybe awareness. Every time you grab somebody, just talk to them about things that are common. It's not about, washing your dirty linen in the public, but talk about issues that are pertinent and common and real. So what happens is, you see, one person earning, so many rights in questions, so many things at loggerheads with each other. We are all for gender equality, and I am strongly in favor of feminism, and I actually am quite I wouldn't say activist, but a philosopher. I'm open to questions, but I very strongly believe in this. It's my heart's calling, and at the same time, I cannot answer human rights questions from my feminist camp. I cannot answer feminist questions standing in human rights camp, and that is not what it should be. So, this is exactly where I thought that as much as we say we work on ourselves, we find our own equilibrium, find our own peace, it is time to talk about the real issues, acknowledge their presence, and only then can we do something about it. And what can we do about it? One, I think that a state, I mean, as much as we say external factors versus internal factors, what is out of your control, we cannot do anything. And obviously, I'm in no position to, influence the state. But it requires to come from a higher level. The state needs to take care of unemployment benefits, young children education, old age security or support, a kind of mutual, conducive, understandable life choices so that the non-earning partner can get something. There has been a lot of debate around whether a housewife can or cannot be given a kind of a salary in recognition of her contribution in the house. I myself do not know the right answer. Is a wife going to be an employee of the husband? There are many negative points to that. Is the wife going to be left at the mercy of the husband in terms of what money she gets? Again, not an easy question to answer. But I think that a state has to do a lot in it, and at the same time at individual levels, all I can ask for, I really don't have solution. I mean, I chose this topic to talk about knowing very well that I will only be proposing questions, no solutions. But I think it is time that we don't shove it under the carpet as personal. We say we are victims when we are. We don't get defensive to say that, I made my decision to stay with my child. Why? Because my child asks for me and not her father when she falls ill. Why? Because she played with a doll and not a car, because she is a daughter. As children, when I actually, when we go to a toy shop, I ask for a birthday gift. The shopkeeper says, boy or girl? I said, why, Naya? What do I will? And he says, if it is a boy, I will give you a doctor set, a car set, a revolver gun. If it is a girl, I will give you a doll set and a kitchen set. The girls learn to nurture, the boys learn to ride a car. They grow up. The female employee takes time off the meeting and goes and calls, has the baby pooped today? Yes. The father goes on 3 days of travel very easily without having to ask for permission. And we all get into this situation so easily, we don't even see it with our plain eyes that there is something wrong. We just say it is our decision, I love my baby, I stay at home. Why? What happens if my parents fall ill? So I really wanted to just place this problem, and with due humility I say I don't have a solution, but I wanted to sound out this problem, and really, especially because most of you are from outside India, I would definitely love each of you if you could share your views of what you have seen in your own lives and how things can go in some direction in a way of reform. Thank you.
So most enlightening and a lot to think about. I have some thoughts, but any feedback from people? Thoughts? Questions?
Yeah, question. You're an actuary.
Yes.
What do they do with the dowry? Do you have dowries? And does a woman get her dowry back? Is that how that works?
It's a very important question. That itself can be a webinar session. Actually, in terms of dowry, in India, you must first understand that all the different states of India have very different culture. Yeah. In fact, there are even 1 or 2 states in India which are matrilinear. In the northeast, the husbands go to the wife's house after they get married. So and a lot about dowry etc. also depends on which state your hometown is. I personally work in Delhi, I stay in Delhi, but my hometown is Kolkata, which is possibly belonging to East India, one of the more gender reformed parts of the entire India. I hear that there is very open dowry cultures in North India as well as in South India, but I would not say that in a way of putting them down or something. It is just what I come to hear from my friends who are from those parts of India. For places also where there is no dowry in terms of cash or gold or cars, I mean there are some marriages where they'll put up a shining car right outside the place where the wedding is taking place, and everyone comes and clicks pictures, and this is what we are giving to our son-in-law. So that's a very proud thing. Yeah. And there are also subtle forms, like obviously no cash but gifts. What would you want, beta? So yes, it is very much there. I would.
Does it belong to the wife? If you're divorced, can the wife say, I want my car back?
No, I don't think so.
So it's really,
the husband
Yes.
takes whatever the dowry is,
Yes.
it's his.
Yes.
And it does not go back with the wife. She
What
leaves.
I understand on the legal side, what I understand is that the gold jewelry stays with the wife. In Bengal, I know it is something, the Bengali word for it is Sri Dhan. Sri is the wife, Dhan is the treasure. So it is the wife's treasure, the jewelry. But even then, they typically talk about which side gave the jewelry. So if the wife's father gave, or the, but yes, in case of cars or cash, it definitely stays with the, with the boy's family. Yes.
And the grandparents, or they don't have Social Security. The grandparents don't typically have any state-funded stipend to live on. So that makes a difference. I mean, the parents probably would want to live alone. True. Sometimes, unless the mother.
Well, would they? I mean, would they? I mean, that's a question, and because we're really talking about social development here, and Tamara, I think, can kind of probably speak somewhat to this idea of social development through economic redistribution. But I'm curious, would the parents culturally want to live alone if they could afford? You said they can retire around 50, but then they become dependent, right? Absolutely. So would they culturally prefer to live alone?
Yes, they would. See, all our expectations, I hope you would agree, our expectations sort of build themselves based on our observations and conditioning, social conditioning. So even today, even in any kind of discussion forum, we very easily take a moralistic stand to favor joint families over nuclear families. So nuclear families, which is supposed to be husband, wife and kids, is supposed to be a bad word, as opposed to joint families where there is supposed to be a lot of, why I am saying supposed to be so many times in the sentence is not a filler, but is because I don't believe in it. There are a sort of moralistic view around it. In fact, in the urban India, a lot of the families are of course living separately. At the same time, if you are in the same hometown, like for example, as I just said, I come from another hometown and I work somewhere else, so it becomes an easy decision. But if it is not an easy decision to stay within the same place and stay away from the parents, from the boy's parents in particular, I think the boy's parents' subtle expectations would be to have the duties to be done. I mean, cash support is one thing, but care support. If the son is, not even son, the daughter-in-law is there to serve to them. Yes, that is an expectation.
I would actually like, if I may.
Yes, please.
Sure. Yeah, so I didn't catch all of your thing, but from a little bit of what I thought, I would just like to share my sense of experience with working in the social sector. This is a little disjoint, but I'm trying to make a point here, right? So I worked with kids with special needs for about 8 years, trying to set up an initiative in Ashwasan, right? And for this, we are not an organization that has the bandwidth to really go to the grassroots level, meet a slum person, educate them what a developmental disorder is, and get them. So what we try and do is focus on collaborating with NGOs that actually do that. So we have a very innovative specialized treatment which is beginning to get its due recognition now. So it's taken us 12 years to really establish its evidence and things like that. While we've made huge amounts of impact in terms of reversals of conditions like neuropathy, rheumatoid arthritis and such, to tell somebody innovative, it really takes people to be open-minded to really accept it, right? So the reason, this is a background for me to share. So I went to this NGO when we had started off, this must be 2007, 2008. And we knew what this science could do, what this methodology could do for the kids, and we were like, just give us an opportunity. And they said, madam, we don't have funds. No funds nahi hai. You understand me. And we said, it's fine, we'll bear the cost and we will do the treatment for free. So we went there. That 1 year was a revelation for me in that NGO. So this NGO is run for children and adults with disability. It's run by a blind person. Anybody who walks in with an NGO, your heart will basically bleed, like you would want to do something for them, and it's so sad. This is an NGO which gets crores in funding from foreign funding. So this gentleman who is so-called blind is actually very, I learned a lot from him. The way he kept in touch with us, the way he built a relationship, the communication that he sent was so consistent and so beautiful. So it's not like they didn't have a budget to allocate for various things. They had a physiotherapist who got paid. And 2 years of, 1 year we did the treatment, they saw the change, they were very happy with it, they gave us testimonials and a written letter and stuff like that. And we said, we are a foundation as well. We're not able to bear the cost anymore. You know, it's literally coming out from our pockets and we just don't have it. And can we create a collaborative project and kind of pitch it together? He said, madam, I don't have any money. He constructed a new building. He is hiring a physiotherapist. He's paying them twice as much as we're asking him to pay us. You know, at least cover the cost of the services that we're giving. And he says, I don't have any money. It's so difficult to even get food and clothing and things like that. I really thought about this for maybe 6 months. And then I realized poverty or anything that you talked about, whether it comes to you know, how marriages are done, how women are treated, poverty, is not about how much money you have in your bank account. It's your mindset.
Absolutely.
Because there are entrepreneurs that I have met who have seen days where they're homeless, who have no money. They have nowhere to go. They don't know what to do. But they are sitting in forums like this, giving wonderful, inspirational talks, inspiring everybody, saying that I am here. But you see, there are people like this gentleman. Yes, he is having a difficult time, but he's definitely not a poor person.
I totally agree with you, and I would, you know, your discussion actually leads me to share this. First economics class in college. The professor comes and tells us, guess why in India we don't have any famine or any, flood or any, official disasters, so to say. And you know what? In the United States of America, these are the statistics. In the UK, these are the statistics, and we are like, why? Because we do not identify them as that. We are used to it. I think our tolerance is actually pretty high, and that's not a good news.
Yeah.
Just to speak to that really quickly, I think these kinds of discussions are really important because I think there's always a second side to the story. And coming from the United States in a development director position with an NGO, we send the money to the people that seem to have the crores, right? Yes. And so often it seems when we have funders, the funders specify it has to go to the physiotherapist, it has to go to the building fund. And so really there might not,
would you mind?
There might not be other funding that's not allocated, right? And so so it's possible that he really was telling the truth. And so but what we're talking about right now is really important because to have these discussions, it helps to understand both sides, like what it could seem like.
So I understand that, and I'm not making this statement very lightly. It took me 2.5, 3 years of hardcore work. I used to work in an NGO. I'm okay to serve people. We deal with people who don't have money all the time, and we deal with people who have a lot of money all the time as well. And it's taken me 12 years of consistently working with people to understand a funder saying that, look, I have $5. I would like it to go to so and so. It's your hard-earned money. You can put in wherever it is that you want. That's your choice. And if our way of doing it is not something that we can really associate with, fair enough. Everybody has their own way. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a mindset. I think she got it, but there are a lot of things in our country. We're actually a very culturally rich country. We have a lot of history that we draw from. I am proud to be an Indian, but I do find it easier to talk to people who are not from India for the simple reason that it is very matter-of-fact conversation. And I've had the privilege of having these people from different cultures actually come together and have a conversation. And it's starting how, and especially true in the social sector, is how limited we are sometimes, given the depth of culture that we have in how we're defining our social structure. I feel sad saying this as an Indian today. Because if we could draw from, if we have evolved as a society in such beautiful ways, if we could draw that from the objectivity that the West is giving us as a gift, I think we would be proud of who we are. And everybody should be proud of who they are individually and where they come from.
You know,
So that was a
yes, that's a beautiful point. And, you know, I want to bring Tamara in because I think she's got some, you know, she specializes in this. And she talked really about the distribution of wealth and the empowerment of people. You know, I think there may be some insights as to how, you know, to advance some of the questions that you're talking about. What characteristics or qualities do you think, well, first of all, I'm curious, are there wealthy in India? You know, the U.S. we have this structure, right, of wealthy people that create and give, right? Do they have that structure in India? Are there very wealthy people that give the way Sorensen, right? And then what qualities, when you talk about your group, what qualities can people in India, would you suggest tomorrow, could, you know, focus on to change, make some of the social changes that she's talking about?
Just a quick reply. So Chuck Feeney, who was the billionaire, actually helped influence Warren Buffett and Bill Gates start the Giving Pledge. And I know that giving and philanthropy is something that maybe has a lot of traction in the U.S. right now. And our CEO at Atlantic was actually doing a world tour to help explain about the giving while living mindset and the Giving Pledge, and was actually has talked a lot with new money entrepreneurs. There is a vast exchange of wealth right now from the older generation to the newer generation. This is just our landscape and what is happening right now in these days. And so everyone's coming up to him and saying, well, why did Chuck decide to do that? Why did Chuck decide on these issues? Why did Chuck decide in these countries? Why was that so specific? What was the strategy behind it? And so it was just an experience of going around and explaining that it's a very personal choice. And actually, as it's gone around, there are now the first South African, Indian billionaires that have started to sign the Giving Pledge, which is to give half your wealth away before you die. Facebook, Carrie Tuna, Dustin Moskowitz, the other founders. I mean, these are all just big names that are slowly signing up to this, and so this is a movement that's growing, but the answer is it is very personal. It's very personal, and you have to look inside your own country and your own values and what's important to you.
But that's interesting because it's so strategic. I mean, this idea of giving, what'd you say, half?
Yeah, the Giving Pledge is to give half before you get.
So that's a very specific strategy that India, you know, may consider, you know, promoting. I mean, that's phenomenal when you think about what half of a billionaire's, right? I mean, that's a catalyst for massive social change. And there's a lot of wealth in India, right? There's a lot of poverty, but there's also, I mean, from what I've seen, extreme wealth, right? And what's the social context around giving and philanthropy for India specifically?
I don't want, sorry, I'll take one moment to answer this. One, obviously, you know, very, very interesting side to the story. In India, obviously there are very wealthy people, there is no doubt about it. I may sound as a cynic. There are obviously people, I'm sure, who are doing good work. There is no doubt about it. But just to share with you one or two small, you know, examples of the other side of the story, there are some very big actors, and you know how big the film industry in India is. So they are perhaps one of the biggest, you know, most richest people. And a few of them in the income tax department are listed as farmers. Because in India, agriculture is a tax-free society, tax-free sector. So a few of them are professionally farmers. There you go.
Well, now that's a very interesting thing. We'll have to come back to that one. Yes, go ahead.
That relates to what I was going to say to Tamara.
Tamara.
The, you know, I don't mean to be a cynic either, but maybe I am. If you establish a huge philanthropy, that's like a tax-free write-off for your whole estate. So there are some built-in
benefits,
loopholes to the tax system that makes that kind of giving lucrative for the person who's doing the giving. What do you got to say about that?
That's an entire another hour to talk about with the lawyers. I think we're being motion that we're out of time. But you're right. There's a lot of different sides to every conversation.
But that's not a bad thing. I mean, it could be that, you know, other places,
Money is doing some good. I mean, obviously. obviously, I totally agree with your point, but even if they are benefiting, if it is a win-win, so be it, perhaps. Better than at least, a lose-lose.
That's great. Thank you, Versi. It was robust. It ended up being robust. So, Tamara and Sinjini, thank you very much. Let's give you a very warm applause. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks for being. That's interesting because I don't actually feel bad that the Americans get tax breaks. I mean, how else would you get?
It motivates people to
especially Americans. You kind of have to. It's not that Americans don't just give. I mean, Americans give all the time, but when you have that much wealth, you have to give them some motivation.
Exactly. And that's the whole impact investing concept, right? So the philanthropy dollars are like this. The impact investing dollars are like this.
You invest and you're supposed to get a return.
And you get a return, but then you can reinvest it, right? And so it incentivizes a greater, broader impact.
It's a different model. I think that's, yes.
What this is all about.
It's really fascinating.
Blended finance.
Yeah.
And people put their money into like the family foundations and things because of those tax breaks, but then that goes to the nonprofit work rather than to their kids, and that helps with the whole affluenza thing. And anyway,
it's just a bigger investment.
He didn't want to give that to his kids. He specifically didn't want to burden them with having a philanthropy, and it was a very personal family decision.
Usually, wealth can. They say by the second generation, wealth can ruin a family. And so this
is. He hated to see how it was ruining his family in the first generation.
Really?
So that's why he just shunned that lifestyle.
You mean the money?
He wore a $10 watch and didn't have a house or a car. Yeah.
And he saw
yeah.
His young.
Yeah.
Oh, one group photo, yes, please.
Millionaire, and he saw.
And so they were getting like spoiled and stuff.
And like death threats. This is the 80s.
Yeah, see, and that's
just like his daughter.
That's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with tax breaks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do think there are givers that would do it regardless.